Please welcome President of DeFi Kingdoms Dreamer, Deputy Director of Binance Charity, Elizabeth Lee, CEO and co-founder of Meta Angels, Alexandra Cavoulacos, and Chief Content Officer of Forbes, Randall Lane.
Web3 that you can give us a good answer, a real good answer. Raise your hand. Okay, we got two. Raise your hand if when you hear Web3, you nod and go, yeah, Web3, but you have no effing idea what you're talking about. How about that? There you go. A few more. Well, this is a panel for both groups. We're gonna both demystify, and if you're up on it, we're gonna talk about how to use it we're at a pivotal moment to actually take it forward. If I had to define it for those who are Web3 shy, I would say, if you take Web 1, that was about consuming content. You know, places like Global Citizen or Forbes, we'd post content, people would consume it. Web 2, you're creating content. You're doing a Twitter post or a YouTube video or a Craigslist ad. It was about creating. And now, Web 3, if you really, to me, had to boil it to one word, it would be owning. It's about owning. And that's the difference. But what's interesting is that we're still in this very, very early stage where we can try to figure out together, what does ownership mean? What does it mean to own? What does it mean in a decentralized internet to kind of take out the middleman? And how can we then pivot that to actually create some good here? So that's the goal today, and we got a great panel. And maybe Dreamer, start with you first. I'd like, in explaining what you guys do, I also want you to critique my definition. You live this world, so how did I do? And then how do we create, based on what you're experiencing with gamification, how do we create that social good within the ownership?
Sure, so I'll add to your explanation first.
Those are excellent kicks, by the way. If I was named Dreamer, I would have those shoes for sure.
Thank you. So yeah, if I go through that again, Web 1, 2, and 3. Web 1 in the 90s, we had read only. You load up a website, you're just reading, and it doesn't look very pretty. You can't do a lot, but it was huge. It was revolutionary. Information at our fingertips. Web 2, we're talking about social media, read and write. Now we are contributing to the story. However, those owning the data, owning the content, are a select few, very centralized. The Facebooks, the Googles, the Amazons. Web 3 is not only just ownership, digital ownership, the ability to prove ownership of any digital asset, but it's an effort to decentralize, give power to the communities, the people, regardless of border, regardless of where you reside. So that's kind of just expanding a little bit on the read, write, and own. So what we're trying to do now, the technology's there. What do we do with the ownership? So there are projects like DeFi Kingdoms, which I'm the president at Kingdom Studios. We are developing DeFi Kingdoms. It's a play-to-earn game where we have simplified things like trading on an AMM protocol or a decentralized exchange. Some of you might have heard a DEX, decentralized exchange, AMM protocol. What is that? How does that benefit me? How do I make money? How do I play? Well, if you go to look at DeFi Kingdoms, it removes a lot of the fuzz that deters many people from Web 3, and it's very approachable. It's a game, but you're learning, you're participating, you're taking control of your own finances. You mentioned remove the middleman. I worked for the middleman for about 10 years. I had 10 years at Goldman Sachs. I quit that to do this.
That's the middlest of them all. So.
Because the technology allows everybody to have complete control of the transfer of assets, to monitor them, to apply them, and contribute to the old movement of decentralization.
Great. And then in terms of what you're doing, DeFi, of course, is for decentralized finance. And with DeFi Kingdoms specifically, how are you using that platform to then accelerate what you're talking about?
Sure. So it's not only a play-to-earn game. We have an invitation out to any protocol out there to come and join us, because one problem, I'll say is a problem, or weakness in Web 3 is a lot of people are kind of just trying to figure it out on their own. Nobody's banding together. So there's games out there, there's lending protocols trying to figure it out. There's new option makers coming up. Then there's a lot of like AAA games trying to figure out, how do I get into Web 3? What we're doing is creating a metaverse where we have about 100,000 users that are in there playing, they're earning. To them, it's changing their lives. But as we partner with other games and you have cross-platform utility of NFTs, you have different forms of, I'd say, kind of boring DeFi protocols come and make it fun, make it gamified. Now in one area, anybody in the world can go in the DeFi Kingdoms, get access to lending, contribute to lending, get access to trading, and play the game to earn. One big part that is directly related to this effort is it's very easy to do if you have assets. But what about those without? How do they get in? How do they, get a device, load up, and contribute to taking control of their own finances if you have none? So one thing that we're developing right now is the Champion program, where we take assets from those that have a lot but no time and connect them with those with a lot of time to play but no assets. And now they can share in the profits. And those, all over the world potentially can load up, play a game, earn money that could be life-changing money for that particular part of the world that they may live in.
I think all over the world is the key term. I just got back 2 weeks ago from Africa. And, here you go to the U.S. and you say, blockchain, and you say crypto, and everyone's like, Bitcoin, how do I make money? It's just a trading vehicle. It's just an asset that people are flipping. But you go to Africa, and people are really, engaged because it's a leapfrog technology. It's a chance to actually build something that, with the utility, that it can actually move more quickly. Now, Elizabeth, you're, with Binance, of course, who, is making a lot of big moves in Africa, has announced that. Disclosure, since Web3 is about disclosure and about transparency, am I right? Binance has announced a $200 million investment in Forbes Media, where I work, so Web3 style transparency. That said, based on what you're seeing at Binance, and also maybe you can incorporate what you do at Binance Charity, how are you seeing that in terms of Web3 as a leapfrog technology?
Yeah, sure. So actually, if we now talking about, as you said, people in Africa now using crypto more than the people in the US. So why? We need to dig the problem it's more about financial inclusion. In the US, we now have a very stable financial infrastructure. Everyone using bank accounts, we use like Venmo, different kind of the digital payments. But in emerging markets, the people there, sometimes they don't even have an ID, like for refugees, or they don't even got a bank to have a bank account. From the World Bank, worldwide there's 1.7 billion people that are unbanked and underbanked. So those people are actually now becoming Binance users. They can now using a Binance account or even a decentralized wallet to send crypto freely to their friends, to their families, or even cross-border transaction remittance. Like immigrants, if they work in some of the, like in Dubai or in the US, they want to send money back to home, they can use cryptocurrency. Now we're thinking we want to send money now to people living in Africa, what kind of tool would you use, right? There's not much efficient tool that we can use, or you need to pay very high transaction fee. On average, it's like 8% or 10%. And also to give an example on the philanthropic giving sector. When last year Taliban took over the country in Afghanistan, we received a lot of inquiries from nonprofit organizations. They're saying, how can we move our funds? We fundraised in the US, in the UK. How can we move it to Afghanistan? And they said, because the bank is now functioning, can you help us actually to turn it into crypto and move funds to Afghanistan and distributing that to people? So, for ourselves, we also did a pilot in Afghanistan to help 100 students there. We helped them create a decentralized wallet. We send crypto directly to them, and then they can go to the local mine exchange to exchange those crypto into Afghani or US dollar. And then they can go to the local market to purchase the things and pay their education. So we really found this is about financial inclusion, about really helping the people who are not included in the current financial system. And if I may say, Web3 encourages the free flow of information, then really Web3 is a Web 2 is for the free flow of information. Then Web 3 encourages the free flow of the value. No matter where you are, no matter what's your nationality, you can own the digital asset that truly belongs to you.
It's a global citizen type of model. One thing to, you talk about kind of what's going on again with what's going on in Africa, what's going on in Afghanistan. To keep in mind what the numbers are. Think about Africa, where you got 1.3 billion people. 70%, as Kwaku mentioned about being a young continent, 70% are under 30. It's going to 2 billion. So think about in the next 20 years. So think about that audience that's adopting crypto as a first currency. And that, again, we have to start thinking about that not in terms of us sitting here in the U.S., but it's truly transformative. I think a lot of people in the U.S., and one more number to nerd out on, because I think this segues nicely to Alex, is that in 2020, there were $2 billion a year, there was $2 billion in venture investments made in the crypto space. 2021, last year, was $27 billion. So this is a monster coming right now. A lot of that's going to NFTs. And I think, again, too many people have the idea, we'll do a little bit of a primer here, they're NFT, I took a picture of my lunch, I'm rich now because I just created an NFT, right? Alex, maybe you can explain, you're in, you serial entrepreneur, now you're in the NFT space, we see some of your work up here. Tell us, what an NFT really is and how we could use it as an application.
Yeah, so an NFT is a non-fungible token. It was not named by a branding person. It's not very easy to wrap your head around, but really all that it means, non-fungible means unique, right? So all that it means is that it proves that you own something unique online. And as as Dreamer said, it's actually quite rare to be able to say this thing belongs to this person. But ownership and provenance has always been important in any sort of transactions, right? Whether it's selling art or a real Matisse and a fake Matisse, right? It matters to know where it came from. And so all of a sudden it's allowing digital things to have value that is able to be exchanged. That's creating value for artists, it's creating value for organizations. But NFT doesn't have to be art. That's obviously how it's captured people's imaginations. And a lot of people think of it as a digital cartoon, probably a monkey cartoon if you're thinking of something in your head right now. This art collection is called Meta Angels. But the whole concept is actually about creating community. I actually think that is what has really captured people's imagination, is how being part of a shared global community allows you to come together.
Well, maybe you can go into specifics on that. I do think that we're quickly finding out, I think people who know, that an NFT without utility is not completely useless, but it's close. It's where you see the growth is NFTs with utility, and you guys have kind of hacked that with Meta Angels. Maybe explain.
Yeah, and some people buy NFTs for the art, but if you're buying as part of a collection, you want it to do something. We actually pioneered on-chain lending. First ever time it was done sort of from a technical perspective on chain. And it's not because you're trying to actually make money from it, it's actually all about accessibility. So for us, if you have multiple Meta Angels, you can actually lend it to someone who might not be able to afford it. And so our community and our membership community is centered around the values of generosity, transparency, and accessibility. And that means that we have teenagers doing civics DAOs in East Asia who have access to our community and the other people and the resources there. And we have, artists in Lagos, and we have people all over the world who are getting access to networks that are usually closed and gated. Rooms like these they could never be in.
So let's get granular here. This is, everyone's talked about creator economy for years. We finally have the economy part of the creator economy happening right now. So how do we use this moment, global citizen now, how do we do this now to actually create change and bake in social good into the creator economy? And maybe Elizabeth, you could even talk a little bit about what Binance Charity does, but how do we use this moment when we're still building this to make it, part of the firmament?
Yeah, I would like to go back to to the first panel when everyone is discussing on the Ukraine issue. So when the crisis happened, actually Binance contributed immediately a 10 million donation to help all the humanitarian aid in Ukraine. And most importantly, recently we launched a crypto refugee card, where for every refugee they have a Binance account. We donate crypto directly to them, and they can add a crypto card virtually into their Google Pay. They can pay anything online, or they can go to the store which accept that. we aim to provide more and more solid infrastructure, really to use blockchain to serve the people in need. And this is something we're continue to do. And also, you may also notice that when the war happened, the government immediately released the different crypto wallets, and they're doing fundraising through crypto. I mean, on history, it's the first time government are doing fundraising using crypto, and it's just in very short time. I think in total it's more than $70 million are raised in cryptocurrency. So private sector, public sector are now engaging in this, and we also hope to collaborate with more partners on that.
Yeah, and just to add some context on how, I'll use the word easy, that's probably not the right word, but how much easier it has become to do things like raise a couple million and donate to a cause. So DeFi Kingdoms was launched in August last year, and Typhoon Odette was hitting over the holidays at the end of last year. And I think it was like Christmas Eve or something, got together with some people that I'm working with, and we should do something. Let's reach out to the community. And community is a very key factor in Web3 growth. Community drives the knowledge, sets the equal playing field, and holds the developers accountable. Reached out to the community, hey, what should we do for Typhoon Odette? And we opened up in one day, raised like $600,000. Got it in the hands of a charity, and the next week it was going in the hands of people that needed it. Now, when I was growing up, I never knew of a way just to be like, I just want to raise $600,000. None of us are established charities. Through a decentralized platform with people all over the world, in one day, we got money in a wallet and transferred it to those that could do something.
Yeah, and the cross-border nature is important as well. I mean, with so many refugees and so many crises happening right now, they may have currency, and all of a sudden they find themselves in another country. It actually makes a really big difference to be able to take that wealth with you. And I think the other point around blockchain is there is such opportunity to push the applications of it, right? We're talking about gaming, we're talking about art, and those things have a lot of value to them. But we launched an accelerator that focused on pushing the NFT enabled businesses, and there are those who are helping with democracy, restoring coral reefs. I mean, there's a huge ability to really fund through Web3.
It is exciting, and it sounds very utopian, I guess, but a tough question. I mean, when Web 2 came, it sounded very utopian. It's like, hey, and we're all connected, and we're all getting to know each other, and I get to stay in touch with grandma, and she shares me her recipes, and then grandma becomes a Russian propagandist without her even knowing it. The dark side comes across. How do we, we're now in the utopian phase, so how do we build this right so we don't have that dark side?
I mean, I think it's so important. Like any other technology, it's not good or bad, right? It's a tool. And I actually think one of the biggest risks to this space is that those in the room who want to have impact, who want to change the world, who want to do good, ignore it. And they ignore it, or they scorn it, or they don't take the time to understand it. And there's a real risk that it ends up being about profit, about commercialism, and that it's not actually used in those areas. And so it's actually my recommendation, my thought for the people in this room. You think about crypto or Web3, and you may roll your eyes or think it's a tech thing. It's actually a tool. It really is an opportunity to think about how do you connect. The decentralization piece is one of it, also the ownership piece, and how you really can create ongoing funding streams for really important causes.
Yeah, and I think if you compare to the experience a little bit with, let's just say, Facebook, if Facebook's coming out and it's cool, we can all have our own profile, we're contributing, we're adding content, but who really benefits? A small amount of people benefit. So what makes it a little bit different, as I think through Web 2, a lot of us actually became distant, even though we give the appearance as though we're together. In Web 3, the ownership allows everybody in this room, if I were to start a new social media page, and I would call it Dreamer Book, and I said, okay, the ownership, I'm going to airdrop to all of you. Now all of you go use it, because the more you use it, and the more successful we make it together, the more the value of that token I just gave you goes up. So the communities aren't just sitting here being like, I love Facebook, I love Instagram. They actually are invested in the future and then benefit from the success. So it's shared ownership in that community.
We're running short of time. We have I don't want to end on that note of fear. I want to end on optimism. So maybe we have this audience, and again, it's even spending this afternoon, and then tomorrow. I mean, this is a different audience. It's a great audience. We have creators, we have activists, we have entrepreneurs. It's a great mix. So maybe 30 seconds each, rapid fire. what is the one takeaway for this great audience that you give in terms of a tool, in terms of a roadmap that's optimistic, that lets this group go forward? And it's a very important topic. Maybe Alex will start with you and go straight across.
Absolutely. I think of it as when Web3, you look at companies now who've developed CSR. If CSR had been there from the beginning, right, baked into these companies in their DNA from day one, we are that early in Web3. So I think the hope I have is that we can really bake these values and this impact into all of these organizations and into the technology from the beginning.
One takeaway I would give, because all of the audience here probably doesn't hear about Web3. So after this panel, you can download a crypto wallet, really try how it was used, and try to buy an NFT and experience what's that. You will find what's the difference between that Web3 and Web2.
I think I'll be very simple in my comment. If you have any idea that you are working on that's consistent with the global citizen approach and view and vision, reach out to somebody in Web3 and say, hey, is there anything here that I could use as a tool to make this work better, to expand the reach and have it be even more impactful? I would say probably 9 times out of 10, or maybe even 10 out of 10, the answer will be yes, and more unique than any other option out there. So this is definitely a tool. It depends on how we use it, depends on who uses it, and how far we take it.
Well, again, I want to thank our panel for making something that makes a lot of people, they hear Web3 and they run away. Everybody here engaged. It's important. This is a marathon, and we're about mile 1 of this. So let's build this one right. So again, thank you to my panelists. Thank you to everybody for the next 2 days. Thank you.